Welcome to Make It Simple, where we take complicated issues and, with the help of a friend, break them down into ideas we can understand, truths we can apply, and questions worth pondering. I'm your host, Matt Popovits, and today on the podcast, we have Zehnder, founder of Red Letter Living and pastor at King of Kings Lutheran Church in Omaha, Nebraska, and also the founder of a brand new gathering and community for young adults called Hodos. Today, we're going to talk about that new event, that gathering, Hodos, and also the need for local churches to engage young adults, 18 to 29-year-olds. And we're going to wonder out loud about what the needs are of 18 to 29-year-olds. And we hope that you find it to be a helpful conversation as we talk about this really cool thing that Zach is spearheading among young adults in the Lutheran Church, and about the needs, spiritual and beyond, of those who are 18 to 29. This conversation is going to be great, and it's also a great opportunity for us to remember that VoxCon 2027 is coming up, and Zach is one of our presenters. Zach Zehnder is going to be one of our main presenters at VoxCon 2027, which is happening in January of 2027. VoxCon is a gathering for creatives and communicators in the faith space to hone their craft, experience community with one another, sharpen their skills, and refine their voice as they share the most important message in the world. And I want you to join us here in Houston for VoxCon 2027. So to get more information and to register, you can head to gotovox.com. That's GOTOVOX.com, and we hope to see you there. With that, let's dive into our conversation with Zach Zehnder about Hodos and the need for the church to engage young adults. Hey, Zach, welcome to the podcast. Great to have you with us, man.
Thanks, Matt. It's so great to see you. Love the work that you do. And I always thought this was a perfect podcast for me because I'm a pretty simple guy. So I made it onto the Simple Podcast.
We're excited to have you. I'm sorry it's taken so long and so many seasons of the podcast to get you on, but you're a busy guy. That's my excuse. You're a busy guy. Getting Zach Zehnder for 40 minutes is darn near impossible. So I feel like this is a miracle in and of itself.
We did it, and it's an honor. It truly is. Love being on it. So.
Yeah, on mine as well. It's great to chat with you. So I want to dive right in. You have founded something called Hodos, which is a young adult gathering. Tell us what it is and why it's needed.
Yeah, great question. So Hodos is a Greek word meaning road or way or path. And for us, it's an opportunity to us older folks, which my friend Grant Skeldon likes to use the term chronologically superior, just means older.
I like that.
But for us older chronologically superior folks, I think it's a way for us to sort of help pave the way for young adults so that they can follow the way of Jesus. And so Hodos, it's kind of started around this idea of a catalytic event, a Lutheran young adult gathering, but it's to me, it's more than that. That's a huge piece of how we're starting, and it'll be a huge piece of what Hodos is and becomes. But our hope is to really, truly be a full-fledged ministry that can, put on a 3 or 4 day amazing gathering, and likely a repeatable gathering that could even be every year. But in addition to that, to be supportive of young adults and equipping young adult ministries kind of throughout the year as well. And so that's a little bit of what Hodos is. How it became is, there's a long answer to that and a short answer. But I would say the kind of high level is really right at a year ago. So last July, I threw out a survey to my audience called State of the LCMS, and it went to other audiences as well. And I was just trying to kind of figure out where are we at right now in our denomination. I wanted to bring some conversations, but come at it from a little different angle, a more objective angle. So I wanted to gather as much data as I could to help inform these conversations. I think that your opinion, my opinion, I think anybody's opinion is valuable, but at the end of the day, sometimes we can be so subjective in these conversations that let's get some real data. And so when I launched that survey, I expected maybe 100 people would take it. And actually 1,054 Lutheran leaders took it. Half of those people were pastors. And so all of a sudden I felt this incredible blessing, but also challenge to steward this data well. And in the data, what came about was certainly some things that we want to highlight and praise and rejoice at of what it means to be Lutheran. but also in the data that probably came across even louder were challenges and problems that we're facing right now. And so from the moment that I started talking about it, the Lord kind of laid it on my heart that it is wise to talk about problems that are important. But he's kind of put it on my heart from, I think, the beginning of who I'm just wired to be a solution-oriented person. And so, yeah, it's okay to talk about problems, but work towards solutions. And so one of the major thing that came out is that, yeah, we've got a lot of issues and challenges in our Lutheran Church Missouri Synod. But when people ranked, like I gave kind of 12 different challenges of like, what's the top urgent challenge right now? I was touched by and also challenged by the number one in all the other things we argue and talk about. And there's lots: power, leadership, pastoral formation, vacancies, you name it. In all of that, the number one thing that got selected was reaching and retaining youth and young adults. And from the moment I saw that, I was like, there's something there. There's a solution there. The problem's real. What is that going to be? And it took time to develop. And as that time went on, I do think that our church body has some really great answers for how it serves our youth. I think there's many great youth programs in our church body at different churches and in different districts. That's a highlight. But kind of unanimously, from the people that I was talking with, it didn't feel like there was anything really exciting on a large scale for the young adult piece of that, the 18 to 29-year-olds. And so conversations started happening, texts with friends of, is there anything really that is just truly forming our young adults in a really organized way in our church body? And the answer came back, no, there's not really much that we can think of. And so from there, it was an idea of, well, I'm a Lutheran, I'm LCMS, and I don't have to, and we don't have to wait on our church body to do fun and important things. We can do them ourselves as the church, as our denomination. And so from there, it started with what would be a really great thing to kind of put on as an organization. The name Hodos came about, and we really wanted to target what we do so well at this every 3-year event called a youth gathering, things that you and I have been a thing that you and I have been a part of and have seen kind of how it's made. What if we do a similar, obviously more mature, different for our 18 to 29-year-olds for a young adult gathering? It didn't take much understanding from those of us in the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod to kind of understand what that might look like or what that could become. And so from there, it's the people loved the idea, and a lot's happened since then. But that's kind of the genesis of it, of like, there's a problem, and we can be a church body that has solutions. And one of the phrases, and then I'll stop, that I think that I've kind of really resonated with is I want to be a person that stops complaining about things that aren't working and start creating something that might. And Hodos might work. That's kind of what I'm like. It might be great. And so let's try. Let's see what it becomes.
Yeah. Oh, I love that, man. Not stop complaining and start creating opportunities for things to get better, right? And I love that. I love that part of our church tradition, how we're led, how we're organized. We are free to try things and to do things. We don't have to wait from authority on high to say, "Hey, local church, go and try new things for the sake of the mission and for reaching people." We are empowered to just go do them, to create the solutions to the problems that we see. As you've solidified the vision and the plan for Hodos, undoubtedly you've talked to a bunch of 18 to 29-year-olds who you're hoping to reach through this. What are you hearing from them about what they're needing right now and what's missing in the local church?
Yes, really had some great conversations. And so a month ago, and at the end of June, I hosted called it Hodos Influencers Gathering. Had 50 people, most of them from different states, join in Omaha, around Omaha, Nebraska, for a three-day gathering where we did some high-level planning, got to listen to a lot of their feedback. We did put on a live stream fundraiser as part of that as well. And so that was a really great opportunity in person to hear so much of what we might hear or see online or in our own local contexts as well. So one of the other pieces that I think is like also comes alongside of like the grander vision that we heard echoed by these young adults is, part of me was seeing so much and hearing so much of national data around Gen Z and the excitement around Jesus and spirituality, and that Bible reading is up, and that Gen Z are actually more frequently attending church than any other generation. And at the same time, I think you're seeing both extremes happen, where some Gen Z are drawn to more of, let's call it the Assemblies of God Pentecostal type. But there's another type that we're hearing a lot about that I heard echoed a lot in the 18 to 29-year-olds that we joined together, is there's this search for something historic, something rooted, something deep, something that has the transcendent was a word that came out a lot. And so in many respects, I'm like, yeah, the Lutheran Church is built for a time like this, where young adults are seeing the emptiness and the hollowness that comes from things like social media and the rise of artificial intelligence. And they're looking for something that's real, something that's tangible. And I'm like, gosh, the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod has that in spades, especially when you look at our sacraments. About these are not just symbols. These are not just memorial meals. And there's something that God is actually doing, and it is transcendent. There's something that we experience, we encounter. And so in many ways, I feel like what we have is perfectly set up for a time like this, except for the fact that it sometimes feels like the Lutheran Church is invisible in trying to reach these people. And so our friend in the LCMS, Brian Stecker, who has a podcast On the Line, has done some studies to show that similarly, he'll say similar things of Gen Z and the search for liturgical, traditional, historic, rooted things. But where Gen Z, a lot of them are going to are the ones that they see. They're going to the ones that they experience online through podcasts or through whatever. And so the Roman Catholic Church is seeing a surge. There's some Eastern Orthodox churches that are seeing a surge. And there may be anecdotal experiences in certain congregations in the LCMS, but as a whole, the LCMS is not seeing that. And so our answer is let's be visible, and let's take this great theology and let's create a space, yes, in an annual hopeful gathering, but also doing some things online that we hope as well that can be a resource. Right now, the Roman Catholics, Brian's done this study, and he's found that there's over 100 YouTube channels, Roman Catholicism, that have over 100,000 subscribers. The LCMS has 0. Stecker's channel will actually be the first one, probably later this year, maybe next year, if it keeps on its same trajectory. And so just thinking about that, and he's done some further study that shows, I think it's a 2,000 to 1 digital footprint for the Roman Catholicism versus Lutheranism. And so again, our Catholic brothers and sisters, there's many great things that they have, but you and I, and many that are listening, have a kindred spirit towards the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod, and we love our theology, and we want it to get out there, and it's just not. And so all of that are things I was kind of hearing is like that we're searching for something deeper, historic, and rooted. And the other word that came up, I've heard this locally at King of Kings, but also with them, is community. They just want community. And so if they have the option of going to a young adult ministry locally where there's actually young adults and theology that's decent, versus going to a Lutheran Church Missouri Synod church where they love the theology, but nobody else is there, they're likely going to choose the one that has community and sacrifice a little bit of theology. And I'm like, we don't have to sacrifice on that. We can create a larger gathering, but also then spaces and a network of churches that have young adult ministries at churches or regionally, where we can provide a lot of what I think the young adults are looking for, which is that community. And I'll just use that word transcendence seems to really come out.
Yeah, and I would second everything that you're saying, especially when it comes to like the hunger that we're seeing in young adults, Gen Z, for Jesus. So I've got a daughter who's 20. She'll be 21 in just a couple of weeks. She's a senior at Texas A&M, and she has a deep faith, born and raised Lutheran, understands and cherishes her Lutheran identity. But when it came time to go to school, she really couldn't find a Lutheran environment that afforded the community and connection piece. And so she started attending a Bible study at Texas A&M, where they're drawing 6,000 kids to this Bible study on a weekly basis. They're filling the basketball arena for a Bible study on a Tuesday night at 9 p.m. And it's just amazing. And the kids are there because there's deep Bible teaching. And then there is the opportunity to connect with each other around that teaching and that truth throughout the week. And what she wants is she wants like a meaty, substantive proclamation of the gospel. And she wants to live her everyday life with other kids who are trying to follow Jesus. That's it. So, and you're seeing that places and spaces that offer that to young adults. Like, don't skimp on the truth and help me follow Jesus with other people who want to be aligned with the way of Jesus. But places and spaces that offer that are seeing just a massive influx of young adults, massive. And I love also what you said about just the need to be present in the spaces where young adults are, because we're often retreating in our particular church body behind the walls of our church on Sunday morning and not in any other space. And then when our young adults tend to show up at our churches, they will find God's gifts in the sacraments, which is amazing, but they might not find that connection and that community. And people will, I agree with you, people will default towards community and connecting with other human beings because it's a key part of how we're wired and how we're made over just about anything else, really. Yeah. All right. So my next question for you then is, if there are local church leaders listening like me, who say, I agree with you, Zach. There is a need to engage young adults, 18 to 29-year-olds. I'm going to tell all the kids in my congregation, 18 to 29, to go to Hodos, but I want to do something in my context to engage them now, to make sure that they show up and stick now. What are some of the things that local church leaders can be doing to engage 18 to 29-year-olds?
Yeah, I think it's probably what you were just hinting at with what Texas A&M is doing with what Breakaway Ministries, right? I'm assuming is the one you're talking about. Mm-hmm. And they've been a vibrant ministry. I had the chance to go see them actually when I was at seminary and I was doing college ministry at St. Louis University as kind of a model and an example of like what a really great college ministry can do. And so you look at things like Texas A&M, you look at Grand Canyon University's got a really great weekly chapel. You look at SEU, Southeastern University, and then you look at other people like J.P. Pokluda and Jenny Allen who have this ministry where they're going to campuses and putting on these events. So I think what I'm seeing in that, again, hearing those words, community and transcendence, how can you have those two pieces? But I think it's our role as leaders to kind of create the way you framed it was spaces and places for these young adults to meet. And so that would be my encouragement is, what does it look like for you to begin something, to start something? It doesn't have to be huge. It doesn't have to be grand, but have you tried anything? And that would be my first thing. We're actually doing this at King of Kings because we recognized a gap at King of Kings with our young adults. We put a lot of attention and time into other ministries, into kids and into students. And so we're genuinely trying to do what we're actually calling others to do on a national scale with Hodos. We're trying to do that locally too. And so for us, what it looks like is we had a sermon series earlier in the year where we really tried to target a little bit younger age. And out of that sermon series, we launched a young adult vision night where we invited all the young adults to come together. And we provided, some really great food that night. I think we did like a chicken tender showdown to see which chicken tenders are the best in the city. And Dave's Hot Chicken won, if anybody's interested. Chick-fil-A was second. The Lord's Chicken was second, which was interesting. Wow. But so anyway, we put that on. But the main point of that, we had a few songs that night. I had a small message, inspirational message of what this could become. But the main point of that night was to gather them together and also to hear their feedback and to hear what they want in a young adult ministry. And so we did that back in April with a kind of a goal to put a leadership team together. And so the leadership team came together out of that, and we've been meeting with hopefully a full rollout in the fall here, where we're hoping to do three things. One is what we heard from them more so, again, that was echoed with the influencers gathering I was talking to you about a little bit ago, community. They want community. We actually did a little thing like a this or that game to just trying to figure out, like, what do you want this to be? Do you want this to be like a large, exciting worship, teaching, message, kind of more worship servicey type? Or do you want it to be more small group? And it was more like 65% small group, 35% worship. So like, cool, they want small groups. And so we're hoping to start weekly small groups and then 2 monthly things, a monthly worship night that has some singing, some music, some praise, some teaching, not like a long teaching, but some teaching, and then more conversation. and then a monthly fun social hang. So those three components are what we're attempting: weekly small groups, and then 2 monthly pieces, a worship kind of conversation teaching night, and a fun social hang each night. I don't know if it'll work, but it's like we're trying things. And that's what I would kind of encourage local leaders is, yeah, I'd love for all the young adults to attend our Hodos Young Adult Lutheran Gathering in 2027. And I could talk about that as being a part of your rhythm for a young adult ministry. But what does it look like for you to start? It might look like just hosting a meeting or a lunch or a dinner. It might look like having a big vision night. It might look like doing small groups that are specifically for young adults. But I would say gather. Do your best to gather young adults in the room and ask, what do you need? What do you need from your church to come alongside of you in a time period where they have transition after transition after transition? The church has got to show up so that they can have something steady in the midst of a lot of change going on in their life.
Yeah, we've done so much in the church to be intentional with other ages and stages, right? We staff for it, we program for it in terms of children's ministry, youth ministry, and making sure that there's lots of opportunities to connect and grow in your faith for more established adults, right? But we just haven't done anything quite as intentional in the vast majority of our churches for those who are in that 18 to 29-year-old age group. And so I love what you guys are doing of just gathering them together and asking them, like, who are you? What do you need? What does community look like for you? What does spiritual growth look like for you? And just being curious and then being willing to respond to what you discover in that curiosity. Zach, as you continue to talk to young adults, be it at King of Kings or through Hodos, apart from what is becoming clear are the spiritual needs, and you talked about transcendence and community, right? What are some of the other concerns, just everyday concerns, worries, and fears that you're hearing, perhaps as like a common thread among young adults right now? What are the burdens on their hearts on a kind of an everyday basis?
Yeah, one of the things I hinted at just briefly was, and Matt, you remember this, and many of our older listeners would remember, like, just how much change happens in a 10-year period. Or 11 year, whatever, 18 to 29-year-old range, which is what we're targeting. Like, think about all the different things that someone might go through. They're likely just graduating high school, many of them going to college, not all, but many of them going to college. They'd be graduating college. They might go to multiple colleges or universities in that time. Some may go to higher ed after that. Some may go right into the work field. Some might change jobs once, twice, or 3 times. Some might move a couple times. Some will go from single to dating to engaged to married. Some will go from single to dating to broken up and single again and multiple times. Some will jump into marriage and have a child, or maybe even a second child by their 29. So my point is, there's so much happening in there. And that's what I kept hearing from these young adults is it's not easy to kind of pigeonhole a young adult because every young adult's journey is different, but the church has got to be there for them in that period of time to glean, I would say, the wisdom from those who have gone before. I think they're very open to that. As long as the research shows that as long as they trust the person that, is trying to pour into them, that they're very open to being mentored. And so I definitely got to hear a good bit about that as well. And so that would be kind of on a big scale, is like just remember the amount of transitions that they have. And like they're experiencing that at a time when many of them grew up in the COVID years and some of those formative years. And so there's all of that to deal with as well. Other things that I think kind of came to head that are interesting for us to think about is it really, one of the, we asked, the Hodos, the Lutheran Young Adult Gathering, is going to have 6 planning strategic teams that are kind of working towards this annual 2027 gathering. And so we gathered some feedback in that June gathering of like, what do you want this conference to be? And there were many things that were said, but one of the things that kind of really stuck out to me was they want this to be a no AI conference. and so, which is interesting because they're probably the ones that are using artificial intelligence the most. And yet they're recognizing, I want something real, something true, something I can trust, something that's not machine made. And so they're wanting a real human experience, if that makes sense. That was interesting. There's also in a similar vein, the social media aspect of things, where some are very tapped into social media and then others are like moving as far away from it as they can. So I think there's this interesting piece, because when you look at the data is showing that Gen Z is using artificial intelligence and social media more than other generations. The ones that I gathered in the room, most of them were pushing back on that. And so I'm actually wondering out loud, is what you say you want actually what you're practicing as a young adult? Because you say you want no AI and you say you're not interested in social media, yet the overall collective numbers show your generation is. So I think they're wrestling with that tension of like, I want to be this person that doesn't depend on AI and doesn't get so overwhelmed with social media. But I think many of them are that person currently. So I think they're recognizing who they want to be and talking about that, and that's awesome. And so part of our goal is, how do we help them? How do we help them see Jesus in all of this and follow Jesus, who is real and who is all the things that they want, to become the people that they want to be, if that makes sense?
Well, it makes total sense, and I'm sensing the same thing. I think your insights are really perceptive, because over the summer I've done a handful of speaking events and a lot of young adults in the room, and I've been asking some similar questions about their relationship to artificial intelligence. I've been trying to figure it out, and I think part of what's going on is young adults understand that they are going to be, as they step into the fullness of their adulthood, they're going to be the ones charged, whether they like it or not, with stewarding AI into its kind of fullest expression in our culture, right? It's going to be them. They're kind of the first generation kind of living fully and completely as adults with AI, right? And I think there's a kind of collective, albeit maybe unrealized or unspoken sense of responsibility that they're feeling. And they're actively trying to discern their relationship to it, right? Even as they use it. Like my daughter uses AI note takers in classes and all this stuff like that. They're actively using it, but they haven't quite landed on how they feel about it morally, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so for example, I'm speaking this summer in a couple of different places, and I'm using AI as kind of a way to have fun in some of these talks. So I was using AI to create some images, and then I use it to create some songs that were kind of funny and things. And I got so much pushback from the young adults in the room who were like, "Hey, we are not comfortable with the fact that you're just using AI to create images or create songs. We have issues with it, like creatively. We have issues with it. Its impact on the environment. We're not cool with it." There was zero pushback from anyone older, zero. They all loved it, but it was the 22-year-old, it was the 26-year-old who was like, "Hey, maybe take your foot off the AI gas a little bit," right? Even as they're the ones primarily using it. So I think they're actively wrestling with their relationship to it.
I do too, I think like in this generation, you also see, like you heard about this especially with the Asbury. I don't know if we're calling it revival or awakening or what we're calling it anymore, but you see this heart of confession and repentance that's very real and very vulnerable in this generation, that they're ready from day one to do that. And so there's that side of it, like, yeah, I think that's awesome. But there is that side of it of like, the numbers show that y'all are using this like crazy. So everyone in the room can't totally be off of everything. Like something's like off here. And so I'm trying to get underneath that a little bit, because similar to you, I was at the Influencers Gathering, I had a few sessions of content. And one of them was a friend of mine who's local, who is a YouTube influencer. And I thought, well, he's an awesome person to bring, that if they're going to be on social media, let's use it for God's glory. He's a guy that has, 5 million subscribers across all his channels. And I thought this is going to be a master class. And it was a master class on like how to use and leverage social media and technology in a way that honors Jesus. And I got the most pushback on that one, because they're like, I don't want to do social media. I don't want to do, and I don't think it resonates with what we're wanting. I'm like, that's interesting, because I thought it would. And so I think we're going to wrestle with that tension, and that's okay. Yeah. But one of the things I thought that came again from that feedback was, we want a gathering that has no AI. And I'm like, I kind of think that's fun to think about. Like, what does that mean truly? Does that mean, cool, no AI and the people that are creating the content? Does that mean no AI with like managements of systems and apps that can really help and save hours on this? What does that mean? I want to press into that, because I want to honor I want to honor, like, my goal for the young adult gathering and even Hodos in general is not to make this a ministry that a 43-year-old white guy from Omaha, Nebraska named Zehnder likes. My time has come and gone, and I've got my preferences, and certainly I'll have some guidance on some things as we go. But my preference and my goal in this is to let the 18 to 29-year-olds run loose on this thing. And what does this look like for you? And how can I steward all these things to become a gathering that you love, that you want, that you need, that you'd be passionate about inviting others to? If this becomes solely my preferences, I've missed the mark, and I don't want that. I want this to be something that can be unifying, that our church body can get excited about, but that largely is being led by the desires, wants, and needs of the 18 to 29-year-olds, of course, mirrored with the truths of Jesus that we learn about in our Lutheran confessions and all those things alongside of it. And so it'll be a really interesting kind of give and take as we plan this to kind of figure out, what does that mean to truly honor what you said you wanted? How far are we going to go with that? Because I'm cool. Let's explore that and let's see what that looks like.
Yeah, well, I think that's to your credit as founder and leader of this, and you know, just full disclosure, just before we hit record, you know, you and I were talking about the need to let this event breathe, so to speak, and kind of hold it loosely, and let the people that it's there to serve really dictate what it becomes and what it is, right? Which is not easy as a leader, right? Because, you know, we come with vision, we come with ideas, and we come with a clear sense of kind of a bold sense of what's going to work and what's not going to work. And so there's a great deal of humility that's required from a founder and a leader of an event like this to say, you know what, this really isn't for me. It's for you guys. And then I'm gonna hold these plans loosely and let the people we're here to serve, if we're really committed to creating a space and a place for them that meets them where they are, let them determine what this is and what it becomes.
Yeah, that's my hope and that's my intent. And so hopefully with integrity, that's the way it comes. And we definitely, even on those 6 planning teams, there's a leader, co-leader, and then there's 3 others that are kind of overseeing, and it'll be at least half young adults that are in that planning team. As I got to be part of the youth gathering planning, which I love, I'm like, yeah, how do we get more youth actually planning the youth gathering? We have good ideas that I think obviously you put enough people in the room that are smart and the talent that we have. And that's one of the things I saw in the youth gathering, you included, the talent that we have in our church body, largely from a volunteer team and perspective, is unbelievable what they can pull off. Yeah. And so I want to leverage that even more so for our young adults. But yeah, especially what you said, I've, you know, it's early and certainly a few decisions had to be made early by the founder, if you will, or by a few people. And so we made a few decisions. We picked a date. We picked a location. We picked a few things that just needed to happen. We threw a fundraiser together because you can have a great idea, but great ideas do need some funding for them to really be possible. And so there were a few things that, of course, to make this overall thing happen, I had to and we had to choose from the beginning. And as a result of that, we actually had a lot of people watching and tuning in. We had 50 people from across the country that invited others to learn and listen. And so because of that, praise God, we had a number of folks register, but we had a number of questions come in, a number of concerns come in. And I'm like, all of those are valid. But I think some people in those questions and concerns are kind of jumping the gun on what they think this is or what they expect it to be. And that's where I want to just allow it to breathe, allow us to plan, allow us to hear from 18 to 29-year-olds. A number of folks are already, coming in with, well, is this going to be a contemporary modern worship service or a liturgical service? Are you going to do divine service? And I'm like, first off, we're not even a church. So I don't even know that we're going to do a worship service. And so part of it's already getting pigeonholed into something that we're a ministry that supports the church, but let us be a ministry that can kind of plan and hold loosely and let's have a gathering and let's have a second gathering and let's learn from each of them and ultimately helping this thing become what it hopefully becomes, which is a really unifying event for, Lord willing, thousands in the future of young adults every year, to put this on their calendar, I think it's going to be pretty powerful. And so anytime you start something new as an entrepreneur, you have the big idea, the big vision, a couple things in place that, like, yeah, we've got to decide these things. But as an entrepreneur, you know you're going to adjust, you're going to pivot, you're going to change. And that's what I'm hoping that everyone listening that may be unsure or maybe even have concerns about it, those are valid concerns. Bring your questions. Let's talk about that. But also let's let it breathe and not make assumptions about what this is even before you've ever seen it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. In the feedback that you've gotten, is there one criticism perhaps that's come up that you've found helpful?
One criticism, yeah, and it was this was actually from the I did a event feedback from the 50 people that came into town, and just wanting to know, what they thought, and there was great excitement overall. But the number one thing that came back was exactly kind of what I said to you, is like, you already had a couple of the big things planned. We want to be, and this is from the young adults, we want to be the ones making decisions and planning, and we didn't do enough planning. We should have done more planning. And I was like, they're right. I want them to do more. I want them to be there. There were a few things, like I said, that kind of needed to happen, and actually did include some young adults in the big decisions, a couple of them, but it was a smaller team. It wasn't all of them. And so that was probably the main criticism, is like, we want to do more of the planning. And I'm like, cool. Then let's go. Get on a serving planning team. And many of them said yes. We've got these 6 teams that are strategy planning teams. And I think combined between the 6, so far we have, I think, 53 people on those 6 teams that are, many of them volunteering, 95% of them volunteering their time for these teams. And so they're, so far at least, putting their money where their mouth is when it comes to, we want to be a part of a planning team. And so, cool, let's go. They're in it.
Yeah, yeah. When you fast forward in your mind to next summer, and the first Hodos gathering has taken place, and you and the team are trying to curate that space that is transcendent, in connecting upward with our God, and deeply communal, and connecting out with the other young adults that are in the room. How do you, and I want this question to hit the right way, how do you make sure that the community that you're curating in that event is like an authentic community experience, and not just kind of a manufactured emotional experience? Because some who are critics of the contextualized contemporary expression of the Lutheran faith that I lead here in my context, and you lead at King of Kings, sometimes that's the pushback, is some manufactured emotional experience that's not real authentic community with each other or even with God. And so what, as you get ready to lead this event, what do you think is essential to making sure that the community that's experienced at Hodos is authentic community, real community, and not something that we've put on with, we put on with smoke and lights and a great band?
Yeah, it's a really great question. And I think for me, I would say, looking at the 50 folks that came this past month, seeing their buy-in and knowing that they're coming from a variety of different backgrounds and perspectives in the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod, knowing that there are some that are more contemporary modern wired, some that are more traditional liturgical wired, and having them on our teams, our planning teams, having a diversity of that on our planning teams, I think is probably, from an accountability guardrail perspective, probably the most strategic thing we can do to kind of protect the Lutheranism and the authentic community piece. But I also, so yes, good to put guardrails and accountability, things like that in place. But I'm also not worried about that, because I see that authenticity and that vulnerability, that quickness to repentance, that hunger in this age. So I think it's just going to happen because of who's there. They're hungry, they're excited. And so the coolest thing for me, and it can be attached to modern or traditional or anything in between. It can be attached to a great session, a breakout session that might be really powerful. For us, it happened to be after we turned the cameras off for the live stream fundraiser Thursday night, we put a lot of time and attention. It was a high pressure thing. We were trying to raise $1 million for an organization that didn't exist. And by God's grace, we're over $910,000 now, which is plenty to get started for a ministry, which is another piece of like, the time is right for this. Sometimes you start ministries really small and you get a small group together and you grow a little bit. There's other times, and this is one I felt, that the timing is right. The problem has been stated. The challenge is big enough. The vision is so easy enough to see that you actually are doing poor stewardship by kind of starting small. And the right thing to do is to start with a catalytic event. That's what Hodos Young Adult Gathering is. That's what we really felt God moving. And so, but because of all that, there was a lot of pressure, let's just say, in that hour and a half that the cameras were on. When the cameras turned off, there was about a 10-minute impromptu praise and worship that flowed from modern songs to beautiful hymns that the young adults were jumping and dancing and smiling and laughing. And I was like, that 10 minutes may have been the most life-giving thing I've participated in ministry in a decade. And may that be just a small glimpse of what we would see next July with, Lord willing, up to 1,500 young adults. And so I think put the guardrails in place, which I think is what we're doing with the strategy teams, but also not worry because the 18 to 29-year-olds are going to be hungry and it's going to be authentic because that's what they want. And just trust that God, through his Holy Spirit and all the amazing people that are working on this, won't be perfect, but the environment will be there where the Holy Spirit will be present, and that will happen. I think he was a connection of yours, or at least a local pastor with you when you were serving in New York, John Tyson. He studied revival and went to a lot of the places where revival has broken out. And one of the things he said is, obviously, you can't make God move, but you can make room for God to move in our lives. And he said the key ingredient where revival broke out was there was enough people in a town, in a village, in a city, whether it was parents or pastors or school teachers or kids or a combination. There was enough people that came with a posture of, God, we want you to be here. And when enough people come with that posture and that attitude, it's amazing what God does. So that's kind of what I'm hoping, is that enough people are going to come with, God, this is all in vain if you aren't here and if you don't show up. And we know he will, but we genuinely want you to be here. Mm-hmm. I'm excited to see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, I'm right there with you, and I think John is spot on, and you are spot on. If people show up with an attitude that says, "God, you are welcome and wanted here," then authentic community, both up and out, is going to take place. Yeah. And if the event is curated in such a way to draw out of the hearts and minds, draw from the hearts and minds of those who are in attendance versus simply pour in, then authentic community is going to take place as well. Like, if those in attendance show up and they're able to share what's on their heart, what's on their mind, and pour out, then that's authentic community right there, right? And I am confident that is going to happen because you're giving voice to that generation that Hodos is aiming to reach in the planning of this, and you're holding it with an open hand and a humble heart, and I think God's going to take hold of that and do some really incredible things with Hodos. Yeah, Zach, one last question for you as we land the plane here. Imagine you're speaking to a 23-year-old who's been listening in on our conversation, and this 23-year-old young lady is wondering if there's a place for her in the Lutheran church that she grew up in, because she grew up in it. Then she went away to college and she came back and she's like, man, it seems to be a great place for young people and a great place for older people, but not really my people. What would you say to that young adult who's like, man, is there a place for me in the church I grew up in?
I'd say I hope so. I hope so. I would start, depend in this fictional, but real scenario for a lot of our Lutheran young adults, I would start with probably a posture of validating that our church body hasn't always shown up in ways that would make them be excited. And if there's any sort of confession or anything needed kind of on behalf of, if you will, or as a Lutheran leader, like, I'm sorry, that's real. And I hope so, because I'm one. And if you want to be with me and be one too, that stops complaining about things that aren't happening or aren't working, but wants to be a part of creating and building something that might, then I think there's a beautiful answer for you. And come along. Let's see what God can do. And I think over time, and let this thing breathe, not just with the annual gathering, but the other things that we're hoping that Hodos becomes. I really do believe that 23-year-old can be a person that's vital in their church or their region, to be an answer to, because I genuinely believe that our theology is valuable enough that we should not, and she should not have to sacrifice her theology, her really great theology, for, let's call it, decent theology, but with community. My hope is we can have that really great theology and community. And even if we haven't been there for you in the way that we could have been, we recognize that, and let's start creating something together that can be an answer, not just for you, but others like you, because there's many others like you too. And let's see what happens. Let's see how God shows up. Let's make room for God to move. And God, we want you to be here.
Well, you've done it, man. You made it simple. I think what I hear you saying that young adults want is theology and community, transcendence and immanence, right? And if we can curate those spaces for them and make it clear that both they and our God are wanted there, then great things are going to happen. Zach, where can people go to learn more about Hodos, to register for it if they're a young adult, or to support it if they believe in this vision?
Yeah, awesome. All of it's at Hodos, Hodos way, W-A-Y, hodosway.com. There is a place already to register for the young adult gathering. We are going to be filling a lot more information in, I would say, in September and October. So it's pretty bare bones right now as the date's picked out and the schedule's there and the location. And so we recognize we've got some room. Our planning teams are going to get started in August, and we'll start to see some more and more information roll out in the next 2 to 3 months. But technically, they can register already. It's a great price, and it's a $99 price at this point. It's about a hard cost of $500 a person, but because of generous donors, we're able to get that down to $99 for now. Afterward, Matt, I'll give you a specific coupon code if you want to link it, to lock that $99 price in for a longer period of time. And so we'll connect with that. So, and also we're telling people, because of how generous people have been, if there's a young adult that genuinely wants to come but can't afford even the $99, like, we're going to be more than generous and charitable with scholarships. So there's a button they can click there to say, hey, I'd like to be here, but the 99 is too much for me. We'll get you a free ticket. That's no problem. And then, of course, there's donation options for those that do believe in this mission. I really think the Lutheran Church as a whole needs a few really new and exciting things to kind of think about. And so if someone here is listening and catching this vision, you can click the donate button on top. There's really great options online. And if you'd rather give through check or donor advised funds, people can email hello@hodosway.com, and we'll make that as simple as possible. But hodosway.com, it's already up and active, and we've already got some young adults registered. And so we're building to what we hope is about 1,500 people, young adults that show up next July. So we'd love, young adult, for you to be here in Omaha. It's actually a pretty cool place. It's not that lame, and you'll see that when you come here next year. So
it's going to be incredible. And I have no doubt that it's going to be packed, man. Hey, thank you. Thank you, Zach. On behalf of all the other pastors who are trying to figure out how to love and care for young adults, thank you for doing this work. We really appreciate it, man.
Awesome, bro. Thank you, Matt, for everything you're doing. And it's an honor to be on. And if people if they do have questions, that email address for Hodos, hello@hodosway.com. I'm looking at that multiple times a day, every day. And we've got a couple others in there as well that are looking at that. So we'd love to connect.
Yeah. And speaking of connecting, let's you and I connect again soon and catch up on how all things Hodos is coming along. Sound good?
Yeah. Sounds good, Matt. Thanks, man.
Thank you. I hope you enjoyed our conversation with Zach Zehnder of Red Letter Living and of Hodos Way. And if you would like to register for the Hodos Gathering, if you are an 18 to 29-year-old and you want to take part in this fantastic new event that's happening in the summer of 2027, you can use a special code that's found in our show notes that will save you $150 on the registration cost and keep that registration at $99 for you. So check out the show notes for that registration code and get signed up today for the Hodos Gathering. Also, just a reminder that VoxCon 2027, featuring Zach Zehnder and a whole bunch of other amazing communicators, is coming, and I want you to be there. So head to gotovox.com, that's gotovox.com, for more information about VoxCon 2027 and to get yourself registered. Thanks again for listening to Make It Simple. We'll be back soon with more conversations where we take big ideas, big topics, and make them something we can understand, apply, and ponder. Thanks, guys.